Right. Um, welcome. Welcome to our viewers, to our audience. Our Future Leader presents this special webinar. It's really a special webinar. You will know why. And our today we have James McCulloch with us, who is the CEO of Inspire Group Asia, based in New Zealand. I'm sure James now can wave his hand so that we know who is James. Okay. No, it's easier. And then later you will say much more about your company and how you operate. But I can tell you one thing to my audience. I can say that James had been in Bangladesh. He has, client in Bangladesh and a multinational company. So that's how we met in Bangladesh, and that's another story. But we have with us our partners for this webinar and two panel discussants in alphabetical order, last name alphabetical. I want to say Professor Moinuddin Chaudhry is with us,
Hello.
who's the president of Society for Leadership Skill Development, and also he teaches at BUP, Bangladesh University of Professionals, as a professor, adjunct professor, and also at Independent University. Then I would like to introduce Coach Kamrul, as you can see the name, who is the founder of CKH Network, the most happening youth network in Bangladesh, because as we speak, more than 5,000 people are learning about soft skills through CKH Network and Wadani Foundation. That's amazing. Maybe later when you get a chance, we talk. But he also is an MD of a global consultancy firm's Bangladesh joint venture called Sensei Wisdom. He's the managing director there. And also, most recently, he has another accolade on his cap. He's the Jump Movement president for Asia. So our panel discussants, thank you so much for joining. Both panel discussants decided that they would rather listen to James's talk, to keynote from behind the studio, and they will appear around 3:30, 35-ish. So while, of course, James will be with me, he's not going anywhere. So he'll be sharing the session. As the title goes, it is Leadership and Learning in a Changing World, Lessons from New Zealand. I would like to recognize and thank SLSD, to CKH Network, and also, of course, our BOLD, Bangladesh Organization for Learning and Development. Many of the BOLD members are here. For the benefit of James, I conclude by saying my part here, that many people have registered. Have you seen 100 plus registration? But we're also going live because so many others wanted to be able to watch because the registration time finished. So we hope there are very many people. There are a lot of comments already coming, and there are youth leaders, there are corporate sector leaders at different echelons, and not from non-profit. There are even students. So you have a wider, varied, diverse audience. I know there's a challenge there, but this is good that your message will be in different parts of the society. So having said that, I do not want to delay any further, and I would like to invite James. I understand you may use slides, but at the beginning, do say a few things about yourself. I didn't want to say much because you're already here, and also about your company and work. Okay, off to you, James, and let's get started. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Moin. Thank you, Kamrul, at your convenience. We'll see you again, both of you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Okay, James, thank you.
Kazi, Thank you for the welcome, and good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. I'm actually here in Wellington, New Zealand at the moment. You can see perhaps the New Zealand flag behind me, also the Malaysian flag, and if I move my head, the Scottish flag as well, because we have team members in all of those locations at the moment. Very, very pleased to be part of this event. Thank you, Kazi. Thank you, Future Leaders. Thank you, Bold. I was in Dakar, of course, in March. Really enjoyed the trip, but really enjoyed the chance to speak at the event as well with Bold on that last evening there. And hoping this finds everyone safe and well and in good spirits at the end of the week, and looking forward to a little bit of reflection as well. I want to just acknowledge that the last few weeks, wherever we've been in the world, New Zealand, and we have teams up in the UK, obviously we're thinking of our teams in Malaysia and Bangladesh at the moment, it's been tough. It's been very, very hard. And, we've all had to adjust very, very quickly. We're still having to adjust at the moment. So I think I want to just reflect on what we've learned, through those times, and how we can perhaps put ourselves in a good position for the second half of 2020. I mean, the first half of 2020 has been pretty challenging, but in a few days' time, we sort of come to the end of that. And I think that's quite important to pause and then think, how do we leap into those next 6 months of the year? So I'm going to share a few concepts with you as well, and just around what we've seen and what we're noticing in our work around the world. Now, just to introduce myself, I am the CEO of Inspire Group Asia. Inspire Group are a New Zealand company, and but also based in Australia and Malaysia. And I suppose our work, quite similar to Future Leaders, really. Our work is about leadership development. Our work is about digital learning. And really our work is just trying to make the workplace a better place to spend time, whether you're working at home or whether you're working in the office. We spend about 10,000 days of our lives there. So let's make sure it's a good experience if possible. Now, let's start as well, of course, just with some pictures of New Zealand, because it's a nice thing to do. And I think my son there is watching upstairs on Facebook Live, so he'll be absolutely devastated. I'll probably hear a scream from upstairs when he sees his photo here. But there we go. And so what we know about New Zealand, of course, is there's beautiful scenery. We know that there's kiwi fruit. But what New Zealand has to be well known for is innovation. We are one of the most remote countries in the world. And, that's been a great blessing, I think, probably in the last few weeks. But it also means that we have to innovate, and we have to look at leadership and learning and try and find new ways of doing things. And so that's what we've been focusing on a lot over the last 3 months or so as well. I think the other thing I want you to recognize, if you've been feeling a little bit tired, your resilience is low, whether you are a senior leader, a student, we know there's all sorts of people on this call listening in. If you've had to work from home, you're not just at home, you're in a crisis trying to get things done. So this isn't traditional times. Do you remember before, the COVID era, if we wanted to work at home, it was because we wanted to really focus on something. Of course, we've all been at home with our families, trying to juggle childcare and all those different things. So let's just acknowledge for a moment that this hasn't been a very easy period either. But it also is a period that we've learned a lot about ourselves and a lot about the future of work as well. So let's explore that. I think leadership and well-being are incredibly closely linked. So I want to just make that very simple as well. The communication that we have now as leaders is incredibly important. It's become even more important when we're communicating virtually like this as well, and not face-to-face. I want to draw on some lessons from New Zealand because I'm incredibly proud to live here, but also there's some really interesting things that we've seen that can be applied everywhere as well. And, leadership skills now are being developed digitally as well. So what does that look like? And how do we adapt our workplaces very, very quickly to that as well? But overall, we need to simplify, don't we? Because I think leadership and learning is very overcomplicated, and we can make that a little bit simpler as well. And what we've all seen is that we have, a new way of working. So what on earth does that mean now? So Kazi, just before I carry on, I just want to check that I'm coming through absolutely okay. Is everything all right?
Yep, your slides are okay. Now we are seeing it, and I can see you. You probably cannot see yourself, but please, everything is going fine. Thank you. And do ask me from time to time. I don't want to interrupt, but if you, for any reason, please do reach out to me. Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely, or send me your WhatsApp concurrently, Kazi. There we go. So you're seeing a little bit behind the scenes there, folks. But we like to make sure that we're not just sort of blindly doing this. And there you go. There's a lesson. When we were doing this in normal times, when I was in Dakar, just 2 or 3 months ago, of course, everyone would be in the room. And isn't it the case now, of course, when we're doing Zoom and Teams meetings, that we don't always see people. We don't pick up that body language. So we have to find new ways of asking, is everyone okay? Does everyone understand? And I think, when you see those people that are a little bit quieter on your team meetings and your calls, how do you reach out to them? And this is very much the new way of working that I've been talking about. What we've already heard is that there's plenty of leaders on this session, senior leaders, students. But what I'm going to say, and my contention is that everyone is a leader. If you have any degree of influence over anyone else, you are a leader. And that's all a leader is. So remember that as well. And I want to just show some pictures of, maybe we would call them inspiring leaders. I would never usually start my talk with pictures of these leaders, but the point I want to make here is that all of these leaders saw a crisis. But all of these leaders also saw an opportunity to change things because of that crisis. And that, I think, is the opportunity that we have now in the world of work. The other thing I want you to reflect on is that the speed, but also the thoughtfulness with which businesses and individuals respond to a crisis determines their future. So it's not always about speed, it's about actually thoughtfulness. And thoughtfulness for me is about well-being, it's about culture, it's about how you bring people along on that journey as well when they're perhaps feeling a degree of crisis as well. The other thing to remember, even before pandemic, is that Fortune 500 companies generally don't stay around as long as you think. Around 49% of the Fortune 500s from 20 years ago no longer exist. They cease to be relevant and they cease to be respected. So, this is no time for complacency in terms of your leadership style or in terms of how you communicate or how you think about your work in the future as well. What we also find is that this is the stuff that keeps CEOs up at night, but I think it keeps all of us up at night at some extent at the moment, and it's all people stuff, okay? It's about hiring the right people and having the right people being productive and being engaged as well. So let's talk about that. And traditionally, of course, we believe that talent in the workplace is just these two things, skills and experience. I'm going to show you why that's actually not the case at all. And also, we've all had to respond to an event, haven't we, recently? So the outcome that we want is determined by the event, which is fixed, pandemic, lockdown, but how we respond to that individually, how we respond to that with our colleagues, determines the outcome. And it can either be a good outcome or a bad outcome. So these are very, very simple formulas that I want you to remember as well. The other one is around logic versus emotion. So logic tells us that in a crisis, everything will pass, everything will be okay, we will come out of this. Emotion, of course, tells us this is terrible, it's always going to be like this, it's never going to get better. And I think as well, if you've been feeling a little bit overwhelmed or a little bit tired or a little bit concerned in the last few weeks, it's normal. We all have. That's the emotion side. We know that lockdown is never a temporary thing. We know that a pandemic will come and a pandemic will pass. Life will get better again. But when we're overwhelmed with that, the emotion, the red side of that slide, takes over. So what are we hearing? I mean, Inspire Group works pretty much all over the world now with big organizations and government. What are we hearing about the future of work and learning, particularly with that New Zealand lens? Well, what we're hearing, and this is a great report from the Board of Innovation over in the States, is we're hearing that the communication piece is even more important, okay? Crisis management and leadership skills have just become absolutely critical. And what Harvard have said very recently is this is the time to really spend some time envisaging your future. What does the future of your workplace want to look like? How are you going to take that forward? And how are you going to keep being agile in the next 6 months? because my feeling is that the next 6 months will see even more disruption than the first 6 months of 2020. Now, the other thing to really think about is what's called the low-touch economy. Because the reality is that COVID-19 is not something that will go away. It may always be there to some extent. So how do we adapt to that as we go through? So a low-touch economy is probably here to stay. What does a low-touch economy even mean? It means that the rules will swing up and down. Sometimes there will be lockdown, sometimes they will go away. It also means that habits will stick. Some of the new habits, we've seen that in terms of the workplace and how things change, but there will be aftershocks. We're very used to aftershocks here in New Zealand. We live in an earthquake-prone country, but economic aftershocks will continue to happen. And I think that any so-called new normal will not be easy at all. In fact, what I've seen in the last few weeks in New Zealand, as we've come back into the workplace, is that it was perhaps easier when all of us were just at home. Now, of course, we're all in a hybrid workplace is very, very challenging as well. What I've also learned, of course, is that there will be tough times, and tough times just make you more determined and grow you as a leader. So I will flash up a couple of book recommendations as we go through as well. And why does that even matter? Well, that matters because
Excellent.
the person that you name leader is the important decision. Now, if you get that wrong, nothing really fixes that. You know, not great money or benefits. If you think about the worst job you've ever had, it was really a lot to do with that poor leader that you had as well. I'm just going to mute that because I'm just getting some feedback there as well.
Sure.
And can you Kazi, can you just tell me if you can still hear me? Is okay?
Yes, this is going fine.
Just want to check.
You can hear me as well, I guess.
Yeah. Are you okay? Still good?
Yes, still good.
Just checking. Okay. All right.
In days of sometimes yeah, good. Check-ins are good.
All right. I like to check in rather than wait till the end and say we lost you on slide 4 or 5. So we know this already. You know, the biggest impact on our health and happiness, whether we're in work, the office, whether we're at home, whether we're having to learn in an online environment instead of being in university or college or school, it's the quality of our relationships. We'd often say, you know, it's the people that make our workplace great, or it's the people that make it a challenge as well. So let's remember that as well. And let's also remember, particularly in these very interesting times, that the person we report to at work is actually more important to our health than our family doctor. They have huge impact on our well-being as well. And the problem is this, okay? The problem is that learning and development in traditional times, and particularly in these transitional times, is often not that effective. And I'm going to share with you why that is and what we can do about that as well. Harvard have found the same thing. 2 great books here about, you know, how most traditional leadership theory doesn't actually lead to great leaders as well. I'd really recommend you check out that book, and also check out this one about how the workplace can have a really negative impact on people. Now, what I've seen with our clients in Malaysia, across Asia, New Zealand, Australia, is that the workplace stress issues have been really, really challenging in the last 3 months, as people have been isolated, as people have had to have big workloads, but also manage their families as well and be in a home environment altogether. And I would really, you know, reach out here to anyone with any sort of leadership responsibility, or just anyone to look out for their colleagues at the moment. I think that's what we all need to do, is be actually kinder to each other and to be checking in about how we're doing. I think when we don't hear from people, we sometimes assume they're okay. Our job is to make sure that they end the day in good shape as well. I want to simplify leadership as well. I said I would at the beginning. I can share with you, and I'm going to save you a bit of time here. There are 32.7 million suggestions on Google about what makes a good leader. There aren't 32.7 million ways of being a good leader. Again, what we're conditioned to think is that it's very complicated because of the generations as well that come through. let me just cut through that and simplify that as well. And of course, we've evolved. We don't work in offices all the time anymore. We certainly don't work 9 to 5. We're connected to devices wherever we are, whatever day of the week it is, whether it's a work day or a weekend. And so whatever we're doing and however we're doing it, going back to that old formula, what I would say is that our talent and our productivity is not just our skills and experience, it's also our attitude or our mindset. And, leadership seems to be very complicated, those generations are very complicated. So let's try and cut through that with perhaps one thing that's very important. And again, there's another good recommendation there for the book there as well. And again, Simplify, another great book recommendation. Now, at Inspire Group, we've developed leaders all over the world, tens of thousands of leaders. And what we've found is that it comes down to these three things. Wherever you are, whatever industry you're in, whatever country you're in, whether you're a student, an emerging leader, a senior leader, a retired leader, a community leader, you need these three things. First of all, you need, of course, a growth mindset, the ability to learn from setbacks and see them as a prescription for success next time. You need to proudly lead yourself in terms of the balance you have in your life, in terms of the relationships that you have, in terms of your diet and exercise and how you look after yourself, and be proud of that. But the thing that's most important is that red circle. And this is really all leaders need to do, in my opinion, is provide direction and provide inspiration. And I want to touch in a moment on the New Zealand response to COVID. But if you think about what our Prime Minister did, it was provide clear direction, provide some inspiration about why you need to do that. Okay? Now, there's only one way that leaders direct and inspire, and it's through conversation. And you know what? It's the toughest thing for a leader, to have those great conversations and to have great communication. But if you can really master that skill as a leader, you will be incredibly effective. Now, I will skip over one or two of these slides, and we'll find a way, Kazi, to share those through future leaders as well, and look at the difference between growth and mindset.
Sure.
If you didn't worry about failing, here's a great question to reflect on, perhaps just before we start work again next week. If you didn't worry about failing, what would you try as well? And this is about having a psychologically safe environment at work. If you didn't worry about failing or making a mistake, would you be more experimental? Would you be more confident? Would you be a little happier as well? Now, change is even harder. Remember all those suggestions for great leadership? Look at change. Now, we're all going through change at the moment. There's loads of theories about it. I'm going to explain it just in 1 minute. Anger, upset, denial, acceptance, and we move on. So, we go through this, and I think we've all gone through this every single day in the last 2 or 3 months. The world has changed before our very eyes. The cities we live in have been locked down. Restrictions have been lifted. Restrictions have come back. It's been a very, very confusing and I think exhausting time as well. So in all of that, I guess looking at all those lessons, how can we adapt and how can we thrive? Well, the first thing I'd think about if we're developing anyone at the moment, any team, or looking at how we might adapt to these changes, is that context matters hugely. So if you're thinking about developing leaders within your organization, if you're thinking about change management in your organization, it has to be relevant to your organization, the people within it, the country that you operate within, the industry that you're in, the sort of backgrounds that your team have. It has to be something that really means something to them as well. And if everyone's going through a bit of a crisis and a bit of a challenge at the moment, I think acknowledging that, really supporting people through that is very, very important. The same can be said if you're looking at new scenarios, base them on things that could really happen in your organization as well. And really focus on the mindset and focus on the results that you want to achieve. What I've seen way too many times in all of our work around the world is people investing in change, in transformation, in learning and development, and not really thinking about the results. And by the way, the results should not just be, we want people to go through this program because we said we would do some leadership development this year, or we said we would do a change program. what do you actually want to shift in terms of their behavior, and how do you want to make things better in your organization as well? And remember how we change behavior, of course. Many of us on this session will be familiar with this. We don't just learn by reading or hearing things, we learn by participating and simulating the activity. And so one other thing for you to reflect on, and we can talk more about this in the Q&A, I think, what did you last learn and how? And I think, again, let's congratulate ourselves. I think we've all become Zoom and Teams and video experts in the last few months out of necessity. And if we'd been asked to do that voluntarily, we probably wouldn't have done it. Well done to all of us on that as well. And also focusing on what we need now. And you'll notice top right there, one of the most important things is collaboration. Now, I was going to talk as well a little bit about, we used to call it the future of work. We used to call it the future of learning. Well, guess what? We're already there. In about March this year, I don't know which day you'd put it down to, but at a certain day, I think we entered the future of work. And it might have felt a little bit painful. It might have felt a little bit disruptive, but here we are. We're in a workplace where we're engaging virtually around the world, which is great. And now in terms of wanting to get better at things, it's not just about e-learning, it's about portable content, it's about giving people things on their phones, and it's about giving people help and support when they need it as well. And the example I'd use for that is that if you're about to have a difficult conversation with a colleague or one of your team, when you need help with that is about 2 minutes before that conversation. To be able to draw down some content that's very unique for you on your phone, and to be able to do that, I think is very, very important. So what will that look like? Here's a few examples from New Zealand that I promised you as well. I think it'll look increasingly like this. I think we'll be getting this content through our phones. Here's an example we did for New Zealand Postal Service. But you know what? I'm a great fan of this. I think and there's a reason why we choose to come together. We come together for the sharing, for the networking, for the bonds that are created. And of course, those workshops are temporarily paused. They now look like this. But again, look at those faces there. You know, there's a reason that these people want to come together to learn and support each other. And what's great about the platforms that we're using a great platform right now as well, is it's so interactive. The tools are there for chat and for polls and for sharing. So we've got this amazing technology that was just there. Now we need to grab that and really use that. But I think we can also use very great tools like gamification. So I think what lockdown has also taught us is that traditional e-learning is actually not that effective at all. Sitting and clicking through a module and pretending that it's gone in, that's not learning, that's not behavior change, it's just compliance. That's all it is. So if you want to make it more engaging, if you want to make it something memorable, make it something that people want to do. They want to play games. And also, they want to look at animations, 30, 60-second, 90-second animations as we scroll through our social media, catch our attention. So if we want to look about how we change culture, if we want to look at how we define great leadership, use these things as well. And again, I think how many people have had to induct new staff virtually in the last few weeks. I certainly know of many examples here in New Zealand, and it can be done. It can absolutely be done. New people can join that you haven't even met for a few weeks if you provide them with some really interesting tools online that they click through and they navigate their own journey on their induction as well. Same with simulation, and the same with mobile learning. I was talking before about those conversation tools that you have in your hand, and you have them exactly when you need them. But that's only half the story. So again, I'm just going to check in with Kazi, who's still coming through loud and clear.
Oh, yeah. You're coming across fine. We probably have approximately 5-7 minutes, and then we might go to our panel discussions as well. But go ahead. We have
perfect. All right.
9 minutes to be precise.
You're very kind. Okay, so we've talked we've covered a lot of ground here, haven't we? We've talked about the importance of leadership and well-being. Leadership and well-being are absolutely linked. There's no doubt about it. Leadership can be simplified. It's simply that ability to provide clear direction and great inspiration. And also, if we're trying to develop our team or ourselves, remember, most learning and development seems to fail unless it's relevant, unless it's relevant to the challenge that you've got, unless it's relevant to the organization that you're in. But I want to share with you something else that's really important and very, very close to my heart. This is actually where I live. I live at the back right of this slide. This is from a local mountain that I walk on often at the weekends. I may walk there tomorrow if I'm very, very lucky, if the weather looks like this. So this is a view of New Zealand. And I think the view of New Zealand that we have is, it must be paradise, surely, because it's beautiful scenery, quite a remote island. We're COVID-free pretty much at the moment as well. So there's some great things about living in New Zealand, but there's also some challenges I want to share with you. You know, New Zealand has this very, very serious problem about mental health and also teen suicide as well. So I want to talk a little bit about well-being, because well-being in the workplace is incredibly important. Now, well-being, we're traditionally taught, is these sort of things. It's providing yoga and exercise and beanbags. It's none of those things. It's actually about listening and connecting and taking notice of what's going on with your colleagues. And what I'd really like to think about is that the thing that we see at work is only sort of the tip of the iceberg. What's going on below the surface in terms of your colleagues? What have they gone through before they even come to work? What's going on in their lives? What might make them a little bit stressed or sad? And remember, it all comes down to great quality conversations that we're having as well. And again, what's that one thing? What's that simplicity? Well, I would contend that well-being in work is about having a role with purpose, but it's about having social connection. And how many times have I said this now? It's about people. It's about the people that we work with, and it's about the quality of the conversations we have with those people that make things better. So whether we're a digital or an analog leader, and I think we're both at the moment in this very transitional world we find ourselves in, I think there's three very important skills. You need to be able to direct, you need to have great conversations, you need to collaborate. Now, I don't think that's changing at all. I think if I was doing this presentation 6 months ago or 6 years ago, I'd be picking these three things as well. So whether we're leading virtually or we're leading face-to-face again, those things are very, very important. And just to finish as well, I promised a little bit of New Zealand flavour as well in terms of leadership. You know, we hear a lot about this lady on the screen here. What's very interesting is that what our Prime Minister was able to do was affect some behaviour change in 5 million people overnight. Mm-hmm. What we try and do, of course, as learning and development people, as leaders, and all of us on this particular session, is we're all trying to get some behaviour change, trying to develop our teams or ourselves, and it's really hard. So somehow she was able to shift the behaviour of not just a team, not just a company, but a whole country pretty much overnight. And there's really only three things that she did. First of all, she gave some pretty clear direction. This is what we've got to do. And the second one, it's a very important one, making meaning. This is why. If we do this, this will happen. If we don't do this, this will happen. But the third one was, I think, where it was a real masterstroke, and this empathy. I understand this will be hard for you. I understand that we will all suffer, but back to making meaning, if we don't do this, it will be so much worse. And I think a great leader has all three of those traits. I'm giving you clear direction. I'm giving you an idea about what that means and why we should do it. But I'm also recognizing that the road ahead will be very, very hard as well. So that's just my take on how that has played out for us as well. So above all, I think what got us here won't get us there. We need to be really thinking about those really core skills about people and about well-being and about empathy as we move forward into this second half of 2020. So I hope I'm just about on time, Kazi. Thank you. And now what I will say as well, we'll have some discussion now, of course, and invite our panelists back in. Lots and lots of resources on inspiredwithasia.com. I've only scratch the surface here as well. Also, lots of resources on our Facebook and our LinkedIn pages, Inspire Group Asia. Do follow those. We post content pretty much every day based on these themes. And thank you. And Kazi, back to you.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, James, for really within a delivering what you promised, talking about leadership and the relationship between leadership and well-being, including what makes somebody a talented person. I think I saw a lot of response from people here where I saw they were talking about your formula, which of course clearly shows how talent equal to knowledge into experience plus experience times attitude. Just like unless the times attitude part is not there, obviously talents are used elsewhere. So I don't want to preempt discussions because we have two discussions here. We have an innovative setup here also. You mentioned about New Zealand tries to be innovative because, in your words, it's far away. It is seen as truly heavenly-like places. But then you are very candid and shared your part of the challenges too. But I'm glad you covered a very balanced perspective of New Zealand, so that nobody's under any illusion. But anyway. So I want to ask you the questions a little bit later. There were 3-4 interesting questions. I'll try to summarize and have at least 2 questions for you. I'll come back to that. But I wanted to go to Moin-Uddin Chaudhry for his designated comments, perhaps about, for example, about 5 minutes or so on James's discussion, and you can add your own the context of Bangladesh. So off to Moinuddin Chaudhry now, Professor Moinuddin Chaudhry, President SLSD. Please, floor is yours. Oh, your microphone needs to be
yes,
put on. Can you put your microphone on?
I just unmuted this. Right. Can you all hear me?
That's okay.
Can you all hear me? Raise your hand.
Yes, very much, very much.
Okay. Yes. Now I can see the sign that you are listening to me. Wonderful. I was really enchanted with each slide. And as I have been campaigning for emotional intelligence as part of my leadership campaign, I was fascinated. Each and every element really touched that particular area. Warren Bennis once talked about leadership, and he said one of the best leadership styles is leadership with emotional intelligence. And when you say that, exactly what James already pointed out, whether it is digital or analog, the first thing which comes is human being. And when you talk about human beings, it's emotion. And when it's emotion, we have to understand we cannot avoid empathy. Whatever we say, whatever we do, because of different perspective, we have to take care of the emotional part of the human being, because that's actually how we actually lead ourselves towards our vision or the goal. So my question from this discussion is,
yeah, our network perhaps is a bit of a challenge, but then I'm sure he will be back. Right. Moin, are you here with us? Probably it may take some time. Right. Would I take this opportunity to go to Kamrul, and then I can ask Moin when he comes back to, when you finish, then he can continue from there. Would that be okay with you, Kamrul?
Sure. No issues.
So please, please.
Thank
Because
you.
of
Thank you so much. Thank you so
sure,
much.
sure. I'm
So,
sure he's coming back.
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Kaji Bhai, Future Leaders, Bold, and of course, James Makula. So it's been amazing. Thank you, James, because you have actually nailed it. My favorite area. I was watching. My most favorite area is too. Self-discipline that you have covered. Before leading others, leading own self, and I think this is the major area in today's world. Are we able to lead ourselves better for our own well-being, for our own emotional well-being? As we talked about the empathy, emotional intelligence, and what is the prerequisite to obtain those? What I believe is this is the fundamental to lead ourselves in a way that is actually adding value for myself first, and then I'm going to add value to others. If I'm not able to add value to my life in terms of disciplines, in terms of building habits, in terms of those value additions in my life, how can I disseminate the value to others? So that's what I obtained from you. This is number one to me. And the second thing, mindset. And often I ask to my student as well, as you have heard, that currently we have 20,000 students enrolled for our program and 7,000 are going to the program. I have asked every one of them about the importance of mindset. I have asked this very question. Just imagine you have the skills, hard skill. Imagine you have the soft skill. Do you think that you're going to succeed in your professional life, in career, in business? 99% of them said no. They have recognized today the mindset is the number one thing, that if they have the right attitude, they can learn anything, they can adopt anything, so that can help them learning first and then unlearning first. Learning, unlearn, and relearn. So, a lot of us, as you rightly said, we need to have the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset, and that becomes the attitude. And every one of us, we agree today, attitude is how measured in playing the role of having the empathetic mindset or emotional intelligence as well, because it's the engine which can give us the running, but it's the tire, if it is flat, which is the attitude. Irrespective how expensive the car is, the car won't move. Simple as that. So that's what
Yes.
I have drawn from you, and I want to hear also more from Professor Mainuddin Chaudhary, who is advocate of emotional intelligence. And rightly, this two topic is my most favorite area. I consider myself, I am more of mindset master rather than any other thing, and I advocate it most to the student having the growth mindset, and that can solve a lot of problems, that can help them unlearn, because a lot of things, as you said, this is learning has become the challenge today. Your another topic, it is truly because of the chaotic information, because the distractions today we are having from various sides, and how we actually absorb all this information into the practicing to our own life. That's the attitude, that's the mindset, and a lot of things coming in contradiction, and how we absorb it and practice it in our life. Because a lot of them, to practice it, we got to forget the other things, which in my world I thought, oh, that's correct, but today the perspective, as you said rightly, has completely changed. So my question to James, considering you came into Bangladesh as well, how do you consider your culture and our culture playing a pivotal role in terms of the growth mindset? Because the COVID, they manage our situations and your situations is totally different. You having a low dense area, but because compared to yours and ours is 50 to 100 times in a high dense area. So in certainly every areas,
Absolutely.
there are certain perspectives. How you want to deal with this? Advice to us. That's it
Yeah.
from my side.
Oh, thank you, Coach Cameron. Yeah, I mean, I reflected on that quite a lot actually in the last few weeks, because Dakar was the last overseas trip that I did before the lockdown, and yeah, the contrast could not be greater. You know, if I think about, you know, the streets that I walked down, and the chaos and the noise and the constant car horns and the vibrancy of the city, you know, it's incredible. Compared to the quiet that we've seen in New Zealand. And I think that, you know, wherever you've been in the world, yeah, the mindset is tricky, isn't it? Because you remember I was showing on the slide, you know, there's a logical approach to these sort of crises, and then there's an emotional approach. Logic, mindset is, yep, it's difficult, it's going to get better, everything always gets better, it's just a phase. The emotional mindset and response is, this is terrible, it may never end, you know, things are very difficult for me and my family, and I don't know how to get through this. So, you know, I think it's about trying, obviously, to recognize that in yourself. You know, where is your mindset at? And I think, you know, I was saying it's all about the people that you surround yourself with as well. So I think if you're struggling as an individual, wherever you are in your life journey, student, leader, wherever, teacher, if you're struggling with your mindset, I think now is the great time to have great supporters and mentors and guides around you as well, who will lift you when you need to be lifted, and sometimes they will need to be lifted as well. And I think you know, it's really important to ask those questions of ourselves. But I think, speaking very personally about this, you know, in the ups and downs that we've all had in the last 3 months, it's the people that are very close to me that have lifted me, you know, when it's all seemed a little bit difficult. And, you know, we need to have those people around us as well. And I think we all experience those different mindsets on different days as well. So, you know, for me, growth mindset is very, very simple. It's, you know, when bad things happen, you know, it's simply an opportunity to learn from them and grow. And where, you know, the fixed mindset and the negative mindset is these bad things happen and it's a disaster. So it's completely different. But you know, and I think the other thing, of course, is recognizing that we're all very critical of ourselves, aren't we? You know, we're our own worst critics in our minds. Acknowledge that and have good people around you who can guide you and say, you know, you're being very hard on yourself. It's okay.
Oh, thank you, James.
Thank you, James, for your.
That was good. Thank you, Kamrul, for adding a question as well. So built-in question. You have the privilege now. You're in the studio, so before our audience can ask a question, you could. Thank you for doing that. No issues. I want to go back to Professor Moinuddin Chaudhary. We had a little technical glitch, but
Right.
the remaining part of your 5 minutes or so, please,
Yes.
your 2 cents, as they say. Please.
Yes, exactly. What I was actually, thank you. Sorry for the abrupt disruption. So it happens all the time because of as James was talking about, whether it is digital or analog, it's about the mindset to continue with the leadership. Okay, so what I actually wanted to know from James is something very simple. You see, Kamrul already talked about, you know, leader as part of his leadership to lead himself or herself to improve, and the other part to lead others as considering that part as followers or something like that. So my question directly to Mr. James, because
the connection is a bit difficult, I think.
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. I'm very much fond of your Prime Minister. I follow her. And very recently, I shared a post when she was talking about how she...
Professor Moinuddin.
Yes. Hello? Are we all there? James, can you hear me? I think
I can
hear you.
It's Kazibai's part this time. This time,
let's carry on. We'll carry on. We'll carry on.
Correct. Carry on.
So a few weeks ago, I was actually sharing one post from your Prime Minister's page, calling her one of the most emotionally intelligent global leaders. And because I saw all the elements of emotional intelligence in her leadership. I think Kazibai is back. It was this time. Yes, James. Yes, all are back. Kazibai, I think this is from your side. Okay, can you all hear me?
Yeah, carry on, please. We can hear you.
Yes. James is back. Okay. Now, from the mass people, I mean, the people, how did they respond
Sorry.
to this type of
Technically, we are
leadership?
having some challenges.
Yes, yes.
I don't know.
And we're enjoying at the same time.
Because without
Okay.
challenge, there is no interest.
Yes, there is no
That's
point
why.
of leadership.
There is
Yes.
no
Yeah,
point
yeah,
of
yeah.
leadership.
I'm
Yes.
just going to
So,
apply a
James,
growth mindset
how
to this.
did the people respond to this approach from your prime minister? The leadership with empathy, emotional intelligence, everything. How did they respond? Because it's very important for Bangladesh to know how actually your people responded to this kind of approach of leadership. Probably it could be a lesson for us, for our people to understand how we can actually respond to this kind of leadership. Yes, James, over to you.
Thank you, Professor. And I think to answer that question, you have to understand, the state of the nation and the state of leadership when we came into the crisis. So,
Correct.
the Prime Minister was starting that situation from a high point of trust as well, because of how she dealt with other situations that had happened in the country as well. So, if we use a sort of leadership analogy, the trust was already high. So you go into a situation, you're respected as a leader generally, and therefore your sort of your capital and your trust is quite high. However, I think the way that people responded was incredible because of that trust and because of the communication. Now, for example, there was daily briefings and daily communication, often from the Prime Minister. There were Facebook Live events that she did, from her own home, talking and answering questions and just dealing with what came up as well. So I think there was a very practical communication that we saw as well. So it didn't, and I think, there was some very clever language as well about uniting and being a team of 5 million. So it wasn't a government imposing something on people. It was actually, we're all in this together and we need to all pitch in. And I think that resonated very, very well. I mean, how that would have played out if we'd gone on for weeks and weeks longer, we don't know. But I think it just seemed to absolutely hit the spot. And also, the other thing was that the people saw results. So within a few days of taking those measures, which were quite extreme, you remember I talked about making meaning. The making meaning was happening. So she was saying, if we do this, this will happen. And within a few days, she was proved right as well. So I think, again, what that then did was enhance the trust even more. So what we saw was incredible. And but I think, it's all about the trust and the communication that people go into those situations with. They're already in a good place and they elevate themselves through those situations as well. So it was a unique set of circumstances, but yeah, generally excellent compliance. I think a very small number of people not complying with lockdown, tiny, really. Most people getting on with it and being very positive about it as well.
Wonderful. I can see mindset from both sides. Excellent. Yes, this is actually what I was actually looking for. Thank you very much, James. It was wonderful. So back to Kazi Bhai. My part from
thank you so much.
We're looking at you.
I'm so happy that despite the challenges, all four of us could interact here, and this is the beautiful. It's almost like I can see, you all are sitting beside each other. So
yes,
except for the fact that this is technology, but especially from my frames, I see Moin and James are sitting beside each other. It's like on a sofa or something.
Because you see, he has only
are
lobbied
sitting
to,
side by side.
because Professor Moinuddin has lobbied to the Prime Minister, New Zealand Prime Minister already.
Excellent. Added value from Kamrul Bhai. Yes.
Emotional intelligence. He has applied emotional intelligence already.
Yes.
No, now it's time to go to the audience, and for James, I might say that there will be maximum 3 questions. So, how long it takes for you is your job. We only have 5 minutes or so, but you can add another 5-7 minutes if you want to. I mean. So the first I think I go back because I promised someone that I will. So this is his question. You can see on screen a different one.
Okay. Yeah. Great question. Thank you, Shepal. Look, I think that the most effective style of leadership during crisis is about clarity and about empathy. So be as clear as you can about what the situation is, and if you don't know, say that you don't know. I think the worst thing is that when people kind of fill the vacuum with with speculation as well and rumor. So I think being very clear, and if you can't give the full situation on that particular day, give a briefing another day, or keep people updated every day with a quick WhatsApp or an email about what's happening. So clear, but also remember the compassion, remember the empathy piece as well. So it has to be grounded in, this is what it is, and I know this is going to be difficult for some of you. I understand, I feel that pain, and this is what I'm doing about it as well. But I think it's about regular, short and regular communication rather than lengthy. Okay, next question, Kazi.
Sure. Thank you. I think Zubair Alam has this question.
Oh, great question, okay. Zubair. So, yeah, look, we've all been struggling with that a little bit, haven't we? I think that, it's very easy when we see our colleagues every day and we get a sense of what they're doing and how they're feeling and productivity and mindset and all those things. Those are very, very difficult to judge through an online session. So again, I'm just going to go back to that magic word of communication. So, we've got these tools now, which are great. So we can communicate in this way. But I think, one of the things that we've learned in the last few weeks is that Zoom and platforms are great. Sometimes just pick up the phone and actually speak to people as well. Go old school. So I think, if you're having a team session where we're all online, that's great for some of the communication, but sometimes just pick up the phone and speak to your colleagues as well individually. And that's how you have those kind of more informal conversations. You remember when we used to be in offices, and we're drifting back there now, the water cooler talk, or the chat we have on the way to the elevator or out to the taxi, or whatever those things are. I think those are the little conversations you need to be having with your colleagues as well. But the other thing is, if you're very clear about what you expect in terms of performance and in terms of objectives, it doesn't matter whether they are with you or whether they're working remotely, as long as they have the tools to be able to do that. So I think it's maybe forced us all to think a little bit more about being clear about what we expect as well. But great question. Thank you.
Thank you. The next one.
Yeah, difficult, really challenging. Okay, so yeah, thank you for the question. And this is I think this is going to come really down to the empathy piece that I was talking about as well. Again, being very, very clear about what the situation is. Is there a threat of job cuts or salary cuts? Why that would be? And is there something we can do about that as a team as well to prevent that or to make that pain a little bit easier? Are there some options within that about how we can spread that so everyone feels a tiny little bit of pain rather than a few people feeling a really huge amount of pain in terms of losing their job? And also, what can we do as a team to support each other through that as well? So, I keep coming back to it, this idea of great communication and empathy as well. So, communication and compassion, clarity and compassion. There we go. So just remember those two words together. So try and be very clear, but try and be very compassionate about it as well. And the other thing as well is, make these things as quick as possible. I think, when there's uncertainty, don't delay. Don't let things hang in the balance for as longer than they need to. I think be very clear with people, even if that means keeping them updated every day, very short updates, but always with a degree of empathy and compassion.
The last question, I think, is this one, very similar. One of our senior leaders.
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think that it's not necessarily about being popular. I think it's about being respected, and I think it's about being relevant and being respected. And I think that some of the great leaders that I've worked with, personally or through our experience at Inspire, may not always be the most universally popular, but they're incredibly, consistent in their style. They're incredibly effective and very well respected for what they do and what they achieve. So I think it's a really difficult time for leaders at the moment as well, particularly the ones that do worry about how people will think of them if there's challenges about money and uncertainty in jobs. So I think don't think so much about popularity, think about effectiveness, and think about the respect and again compassion. And I think through that there's the effectiveness.
Kaziva, if you allow me one supplementary
Please.
question I want to add, just a little
Please,
bit.
please.
Because we are watching the world, so a lot of people are talking about if we do not act and also get loose of the facts and the passengers from the organization, the whole possibility, the whole entire organization might collapse if we are not actually shredding the additional resources which is not needed at this moment. So how do you handle the empathy apply into these situations? Because it's the entire organizations versus you got to get rid of maybe percentage of them.
Yeah, and I think organizational change comes down to individual change as well, doesn't it? So it's being very careful about the messaging and making it incredibly relevant. So whether you're trying to change an organization, whether you're looking on a countrywide scale or a citywide scale or whatever that is, it's being very, very careful. Remember, I talked about the importance of context as well. It has to actually mean something to people as well. Now, what that also means is we maybe need to take a little bit longer about the preparation of our communication as leaders at this time. So the communication might be quite short. The preparation and the thought that goes into it, the practice might be a little bit longer.
Thank you. I just see that one of our friends from actually Malaysia, he's a student leader from Malaysia, Bangladesh Students Union in Malaysia. I did a conference there the day before you came at Bold event, James. So this is Imtiaz, a great organizer. Something tells me Imtiaz would want to keep in touch with you, because if you're in KL, who knows, he may invite you as well. So that remains to be seen. So
Right.
so having so now I don't want to take any more minutes from your evening, from your dinner and family, and I'm sure you probably sleep a bit early. Now it's 10 o'clock. In fact, 4 minutes past 10 in New Zealand. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a long week, but a very interesting week, and it's a great pleasure to be with you all. And I just look forward to when things are a little bit easier, being back in Dakar and doing some of these events in person again. That'll be great fun.
Now, from my side, my closing statement would be: first, I want to thank my audience who visited from several pages. And then there are so many wonderful questions, as you saw, and there's so many others, but I summarized kind of in these 4 questions. And this was an innovative arrangement, which I, of course, picked it up from you, James, that it's not only you talking, but there are discussants here. And there was kind of a in real life conference where a keynote speaker is there and other discussants are there. So I did it for the first time, actually. So I thank my panel discussions, and I know how busy, James, you remain. I work with you remotely. I keep in touch with you, and I see, and yet you manage time today. Really, really, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, as they say. And so Bold thanks you, Future Leaders thanks you. I'm sure CKH Network is with us, and SLSD. Any parting words you have? With that, we will end today's session. Kamrul, anything you want to say? Just a quick.
Yeah, we want to thank you, James, and definitely with Kaji Bhai and Professor Mainuddin. everybody has their own expertise at their own field. But certainly, James, you have brought the most burning issues, the leading own self and the mindset part, because I think this is most important issue today. We actually need to practice ourselves to overcome the difficulties and challenging situations. And thank you again for bringing this and connecting with all of us together. I think our student has got the message clearly, because all the time I keep on saying it now. Since somebody from the QE coming and saying the same, how come? So that's seriously. Because I keep on saying this.
Great men and women think alike, so maybe that's why. Yeah. Professor Moinuddin Chaudhary.
Thank you so much, James. It was wonderful. And leaders are learners, learners are leaders. So we learn from each other. Thank you, Kazi bhai, for getting us on board with this superb mission and see the responses from the people. This time is actually very critical for us in Bangladesh, James, because after lunch, you have a very good habit to sleep for 1 or 2 hours. But if you see the responses because of your session, people really sacrificed. It means we are actually learning from the global perspective. Thank you so much, James. Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you with so many other programs with Bold, SLSD, or Coach Kamrul program, whatever. And thank you. Love you so much. So much.
All right. Thank you, guys. All right. Good night. Good afternoon.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, then. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Okay, আমরা তিনজন থাকি তাহলে একটু 2 মিনিট কথা বলি।
Sure, why not?
Sorry, I didn't end the broadcast.